What do you think? Are these escalating trade tensions between the US and Canada justified? Or is this a move that could do more harm than good? Let us know in the comments below. Earlier this month, tensions between the US and Canada reached a boiling point when President Donald Trump announced a sweeping set of tariffs on Canadian goods. His justification: concerns over illegal immigration and the growing fentanyl crisis in the US. As part of this new policy, all Canadian imports would face a 25% tariff, while energy products critical to Canada's economy would be taxed at a slightly lower rate of 10%. These tariffs were set to take effect on February 4, 2025, sending shockwaves through both political and economic spheres. Canada wasted no time responding. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau quickly fired back, announcing retaliatory tariffs of 25% on $30 billion worth of American goods. This included staple war. Just as tensions were reaching their peak, a surprising breakthrough came. After intense discussions, Trump and Trudeau agreed to delay the tariffs for 30 days. In return, Canada promised to step up its border security measures by appointing a fentanyl czar and collaborating with US officials to create a joint task force to combat drug smuggling. This temporary pause offered a moment of relief, but the damage had already been done. Many Canadians remained uneasy about the economic consequences that could still follow. Reactions to the agreement within Canada were mixed. Some viewed it as a necessary compromise to avoid an economic disaster, while others worried that it would only postpone the inevitable. Even with the delay, concerns remained high. Economists warned that if the tariffs eventually went into effect, they could lead to increased consumer prices, supply chain disruptions, and a serious strain on the historically strong trade relationship between the two nations. In response to the growing uncertainty, Canada began looking for new trade opportunities, especially in Asia, to reduce its dependence on the US market. One of the first regions Canada turned to was Japan. Alberta, the heart of Canada's oil and natural gas industry, began working on a strategy to diversify its energy exports. The province aimed to develop stronger trade relationships beyond North America, ensuring that Canadian energy resources wouldn't be solely reliant on a US market that was becoming increasingly unpredictable. Japan, with its growing energy needs, quickly became a major focus. To accelerate this transition, Trudeau called for an economic summit, bringing together business leaders, policy experts, and labor unions to discuss ways to reduce Canada's economic reliance on the US. Among the proposed strategies were boosting domestic commerce and revisiting previously scrapped energy projects. The goal? Make it easier for Canada to export oil and gas to international buyers while securing long-term economic stability. Meanwhile, Canadian public sentiment took a dramatic shift. Recent polling showed that 90% of Canadians now supported reducing economic dependence on the US, a significant increase from before the tariff threat emerged. The Canadian business community also began making adjustments to prepare for a new trade landscape. One major player in this shift was Suncor Energy, one of Canada's largest oil producers. Unlike many competitors that rely almost entirely on selling oil to the US, Suncor reassured investors that it was better positioned to handle potential tariffs thanks to its access to the Trans Mountain Pipeline. Running from Alberta to British Columbia's coast, Suncor could ship much of its production to global markets rather than being forced to rely on American buyers. Despite these strategic efforts, Canada's deep economic ties to the US wouldn't be easy to untangle. For decades, the US has been Canada's primary customer for oil and gas, shaping Canada's trade policies and energy strategies. But with the looming tariff threat, Canada had no choice but to rethink its entire economic future. For years, Canada has leaned heavily on the US for its energy exports. In 2022 alone, Canada shipped $22.4 billion worth of natural gas to the US, reinforcing just how intertwined the two countries are in terms of energy trade. However, with the US now considering further tariffs on Canadian energy products, the pressure was on Canadian leaders to secure alternative markets. Japan emerged as a key contender, as one of the world's largest importers of liquefied natural gas, LNG. Japan's demand for energy was only expected to grow. In 2023, Japan imported about 66 million tons of LNG, second only to China. Although Japan has been investing in nuclear and renewable energy, its power needs are still increasing, especially with the expansion of energy-intensive industries such as data centers. If cleaner alternatives like hydrogen and ammonia fail to scale up quickly, Japan's LNG demand will likely remain high, creating a valuable opportunity for Canada. Canada had another strategic advantage over its competitors: geography. Its west coast is significantly closer to Japan than the US Gulf Coast, making shipping times shorter and more cost-effective. A shipment from Vancouver to Tokyo takes approximately 11 days, while LNG shipments from the US often have to navigate through the Panama Canal, adding time, expenses, and logistical challenges. Furthermore, Canada's LNG is about 40% less carbon-intensive than US LNG, making it a more attractive option for environmentally conscious buyers. Recognizing this potential, Alberta's Minister of Environment and Protected Areas, Rebecca Schultz, took action. During a visit to Tokyo, she met with key industry leaders, including executives from Japan's largest LNG buyer. Schultz toured the Futsu Thermal Power Station and LNG intake facility, discussing how Alberta could play a crucial role in securing Japan's energy future. She also engaged with leaders from the Japan Gas Association and JOGMEC, Japan Oil, Gas and Metals National Corporation, exploring potential investment opportunities in Alberta's LNG sector. At the center of this growing energy partnership was LNG Canada, a massive export terminal under construction in Kitimat, British Columbia. With a $40 billion price tag, it was the largest energy investment in Canadian history. The project, backed by energy giants like Shell, Petronas, Mitsubishi, and Kogas, was expected to process and export natural gas from British Columbia's Montney Formation. Once operational in mid-2025, LNG Canada would produce 14 million tons of LNG per year, with plans to eventually double its output. Japan was already deeply invested in the project. Mitsubishi held a 15% stake in LNG Canada, reinforcing its commitment to securing long-term LNG supplies from Canada. As infrastructure development progressed, British Columbia was poised to become a major hub for LNG exports, not just for Japan, but for the entire Asia-Pacific region. Another promising project was Woodfibre LNG, a smaller but innovative facility in Squamish, British Columbia. Unlike traditional LNG plants, Woodfibre LNG aimed to prioritize sustainability by using electric power instead of natural gas for liquefaction, significantly reducing emissions. The project was also a collaborative effort with the Squamish Nation, ensuring that environmental and cultural concerns were addressed. Meanwhile, another groundbreaking initiative was taking shape in Kitimat: Cedar LNG. This project, led by the Haisla Nation, was unique as one of the first Indigenous-led energy ventures in Canada. Partnering with private sector investors, Cedar LNG aimed to export 3 million tons of LNG annually, while generating economic benefits for the local community. The project also incorporated low-emission technologies to minimize its carbon footprint, making it one of the greenest LNG facilities in North America. As Canada ramped up its efforts to diversify its energy exports, the message was clear. The country was determined to reduce its reliance on the US market. While breaking away from decades of economic dependence wouldn't happen overnight, Canada's strategic shift toward Asia signaled a major transformation in its trade policies. The question now is, will this gamble pay off? Could Canada's pivot to Asia reshape the global energy market? Or will tensions with the US ultimately force Canada to retreat? Share your thoughts in the comments below.